Welcome to Reality Creative Video. I'm Hermes, and today I want to talk about water. I've gotten some questions about water, and I think it's a complicated issue. Various kinds of water that you have and what to use for what. I mean, there is tap water, rainwater, distilled water, reverse osmosis water, and filtered water, which can be anything from your refrigerator filter to one of these zero water pitchers, which gives you 0 parts per million water. So some of the stuff that you have in your house, like maybe vaporizers or medical equipment, may require distilled water or RO water or zero water to work, and then you have to get the appropriate water. But let's talk about stuff like that. In the lab here, when we cook colloidals, we need 0 parts per million water, or as close as possible to 0 parts per million, but that's just a general rule. So there are various ways to achieve that. Mostly 0 parts per million water can be achieved through distillation. This is a distiller. You put the water in here, and then you plug it in and it boils. It goes into the top here. You look on the top, you'll see the steam goes in here, goes underneath this flap, goes into the coils, which are all wrapped around on top here. And then the fan cools the water down, and then it drips down the coils into your water tank. Now, if you have heavy these are not commercial grade distillers. They're general purpose distillers that are good for basically general purpose stuff. They're not commercial grade, let's put it that way. So if you try to distill well water, like my well water is 150 parts per million. If I distill well water in my distiller, I will get anywhere between 2 to 5 parts per million water on the way out. It will not take everything out. I know distillation is supposed to take everything out, but the way these modern distillers, low-end distillers are designed, they can't remove everything, especially when you're talking about 150 parts per million stuff. Still, that's pretty impressive, getting 5 to 2 parts per million out of 150 parts per million stuff. So if you are distilling well water and you want 0 parts per million water, you will have to do the water twice. But I have cooked colloidals with RO water at 8 parts per million and lower, and I haven't had any problems. Gold was a little touchy with the 8 parts per million water. It didn't exactly get the perfect ruby red that I wanted out of it. Gold really wants like 0 parts per million water, but silver, zinc, and all the other things, even platinum, which I have right here. Even platinum, I tried RO water, and it kind of worked as well, too. An alternative to distillation and RO water is this zero water filter. Now, I know in an earlier video I said you really shouldn't use the zero water, but when I was I went through so much water, distilled water, going to do my platinum, that I was running out of distilled water. And so out of desperation, I started using the zero water. And it does work. Zero water does work for colloidals. I've used it. This pitcher will produce 0 parts per million water as measured on a TDS meter. This is a TDS meter. You stick it in the water and it'll tell you. My previous video goes into more detail than that. On that, if you want to watch me measure the various waters, I'll link to that video. So this does produce 0 parts per million water through filtration. I actually find that amazing. And it does work with colloidals. Again, with gold, it was a little hinky on the gold. The gold knew that this was filtered water and not distilled water. So take that with a grain of salt if you're trying it with gold. Now, the way I use my distilled water is I don't put the well water in the distilled water. What I do is I have RO tank, reverse osmosis tank, which stores about 30 gallons of RO water. And I will take that water, fill up my distiller, and I will distill that water, which is 8 parts per million, down to 0 parts per million. So that's how I clean up the act of my high concentration, 150 parts per million well water. Do whatever you want to do or is most economical for you. You could also buy distilled water. The lowest quality distilled, the best quality distilled water. I can't say it's my distilled water that I do here. No, the best quality distilled water is this water I buy at Walmart. I've compared Publix distilled water with Walmart distilled water, and Walmart's distilled water is still a little better in quality, of less of the VOCs or things floating in the water over Publix water, distilled water. But that's the lowest. When I got to do scientific grade research where I need the cleanest water, I will use the Walmart water. So you may want to consider buying water if you don't want to go the route of filtering it yourself. It'll work just fine on your colloidals, is what I'm saying. So that is your choices with water as far as how to use stuff. Now let's going to make a comment on drinking RO water, distilled water. This is like a political topic. It's like everybody has an opinion, and whatever that opinion is, it is. So this is in my opinion, and also in the opinion of the chemists that I associate with. We're all in agreement that distilled water will leach vital nutrients out of your body. Why? Because, we use distilled water not only in the lab, not only because it's pure to cook our stuff, we also use it to clean the beakers and things because it strips all of the chemicals and soap and everything out of the beakers. Well, if it strips all the chemicals and soap and stuff out of the beakers, you can imagine what distilled water is going to do in your body. When you drink it, it acts as a sponge. It sucks up all of your nutrients that you have in your body. Now, it's good for the short term, in my opinion, if you want to get rid of some toxic stuff in you. So you go on a distilled water kind of diet for about a week. But after that, you come off it because you need to put the nutrients back in your body, or you're going to have some long-term health issues, in my opinion. So take that with a grain of salt. What I do with water, drinking water, is my well water is 150 parts per million. So I will mix that with RO water, which is 8 parts per million, and in about a 50-50 mix, and it gives me about a 60 to 70 parts per million, which is almost like maybe a little heavy spring water sort of mixture. Spring water is anywhere between 30 to 50 parts per million. So that's what I do with my drinking water. I mix RO and the well water together, and that gives me a pretty decent water that I can drink. So you might be able to do something like that, especially for those of you that have well water. You could get a 0 water pitcher like this if you don't want to get an RO unit, and then mix a pitcher of this with a pitcher of your well water, and then you'd have something 50, in the middle of, 75, 60 to 75 parts per million drinking water, which would be better than drinking the 150 parts per million well water, which is like heavy mineral content. Not that that's bad for you, it's just may not taste so great. Heavy mineralized water, let's face it, we are creatures of the earth. There was no distillers 100 years ago. We drank the water from the earth. Now today there's more pollution in the water because of the industrialization and things like that. But for the most part, the minerals content of the water is something that we humans have been drinking for years. So never be afraid of drinking mineralized water. Your body will just know what to do with it because that's what it's been drinking for centuries. In our DNA knows what to do with that. So the reason for the filtered water and things like that in today's day and age is because, like I said, today's industrialized society, we got other things in our water besides regular minerals. We got pesticides, we got fertilizer, we got chlorine, a whole bunch of other things, and you'll need some kind of filtration to remove those toxins from the water before you actually want to drink them. Rainwater. Never drink rainwater or use rainwater for your colloidals. Rainwater is heavily concentrated in toxic nature of whatever the air happens to be, picks up in the air, and as you know, unless you live in the boondocks somewhere where there's no industrialization around, the air is heavy with pollutants, carbon from the cars and things like that, plus the other stuff floating around in the air. So rainwater, if you're going to drink rainwater, you have to put it through some kind of filtration. Now, you can put it through a zero water filter. That'll give you 0 parts per million water, but then you're going to be at the same problem we get 0 parts per million water, and it's not too good to be drinking. So I would recommend, if you're going to drink rainwater or well water or whatever, and you don't want to mix it, then get one of these like filters, just filtered water container. Not a 0 parts per million water container, just something that's going to filter the water, just like your refrigerator's got in it. It'll filter it down, most of the toxic substances out, so you'll be drinking, maybe a mineralized version of it, but it won't have any of the crap in it. So you can pick those pictures up online as well. So that is my recommendation on water. I'm Hermes. This is Reality Creative Video. I will talk to you again soon.